In this lesson, I'm going to walk you through all of the account actions in your actions list. This is probably one of the biggest category of actions as it has to do with modifying your user records. It's an important one because there's a lot of built-in functionality here that Bubble has for making changes to user emails, passwords, updating all of that stuff, creating accounts for other people. So I'm just going to walk you through all the different options here. And keep in mind that this is only related to the user record. So if you go to data here under your data types, remember that the user data type is the only built-in type that Bubble gives you. This will be in every single Bubble app. And then any additional fields that you add as a custom field will be added onto that, but the user will always be there. You cannot remove it. It also comes with built-in email field, as well as a built-in and hidden password field. You do not have access to people's passwords. That is an encrypted field for security purposes. So let's look at all of the actions that are available to you for creating workflows that involve the user record. The first one is, of course, the sign up action. So this is what creates a new user record when you want users to sign themselves up. And I say themselves because you actually do have actions for creating user records for someone else. We'll get to that in a moment. The sign up action requires an email address and a password. So you will want to have inputs on your page, input elements, to insert those values into these separate fields. In fact, because I've added this action and I haven't added anything in here, we see that Bubble is giving us some issues to remember to fill these out because these are required. And any other action just in general that has required setup to fill in, it will generate an issue so you won't forget about it, you won't miss it. Most of the action setup options will be optional, but you do want to take a look and see what all of the settings are because there's a lot of different customization that's available to you. So take a look at everything, test how everything behaves so that you understand what you need for your workflows. So for sign up, email and password are required. You can have a password confirmation. This is optional. If you do choose to confirm a password, you'll want to check that box, and then you'll want to provide another input value to have the confirmation. So what I'm talking about here is, let's say we have a sign up form. I'm just going to create one real quick here. I'm going to add an input for the email. So this will be email address. Then I'm going to have another input for password, which will be the password. And then I'm going to have another input to confirm the password. So this is so that they can retype their password in to make sure that they are typing in the password that they want and there's no typo or anything. Because with password inputs, Bubble will conceal that value. I'll preview the page here. Let me just hide this alert message. Preview the page so that you can see what I mean by that. So here you'll enter an email with your password. If I start typing something in, it will conceal it. So having a confirmation field is a smart idea to make sure that your users aren't entering any kind of typo, because if you go to run the action to sign up a user and the passwords don't match, Bubble will trigger an error and they'll see a message, and it'll give them an opportunity to try again, make sure that they've entered in the right values there. So this is optional, but if you do want to enable that type of feature, check this box and make sure to provide that separate confirmation value there. You also have an optional feature here to send the user who is signing up a confirmation email address, or sorry, an email to the address that they've entered in. This will send an email to that user with a unique link. Okay, and that link will tell Bubble when they click on that link to confirm the user. And so when you check this box, all you need to tell Bubble is what page the user should be taken to after they've clicked the link. Because they do need to end up on the app for Bubble to run that background process of confirming the user and have the user end up somewhere. A lot of people like to create specific pages just for this confirmation page. It can be very simple, just with a simple static text that says, "Thank you, you are now confirmed." Maybe have a button on there to help them access another page on your app, like going to the dashboard page or whatever it might be. But this is, if you have this checked, that email will get sent automatically for you. Now, notice that there isn't anywhere to modify that email in the property editor for this action. If you want to change what the email says, you'll need to go to Settings, then Languages here. And if you scroll kind of down halfway, you'll see here email confirmation subject, which is right there, and email confirmation body. So here's the default, and if you need to change the wording, this is where you would want to do it. The link, the confirmation link, will be added automatically. You can't change that. It's just going to be inserted at the end of the email. Okay, and then remember the email will let you decide whether you want Bubble to automatically keep the user logged in or not. This is looking for a yes or no value. You can see if I check this, you can have it always remember the email, or you can give the user the option. So the way that I would do that is have a checkbox on as a part of the sign up form. So I've added a checkbox element there, and you can have it labeled something like remember me. And then the value of this checkbox gets inserted here so that you're actually leaving that decision up to the user instead of forcing Bubble to remember it for every single person. So you can do, remember the email will equal the checkboxes is checked. Okay, so if this is true, this is a true or false statement. If it is true, then this value will be yes. If it is not true, meaning when it's not checked, this will be no, then Bubble will not remember the email. Now, if you want to save additional fields to the user record in the same action as signing them up, because you are very likely going to have additional custom fields like their name, phone number, profile photo, first, you will have to have those inputs available on the page for the user to fill in those details, to upload their picture, whatever it might be. And then you'll go back into your sign up action and use this feature here, change another field. So you'll select that, and that way you can select the different fields you want to save right off the bat directly from your sign up form. So first name would equal a dynamic value here. You would select the input that they would be typing their name in. I don't have one right now, but you would need to add in that extra input. If it's a profile picture, then you would want to add a photo uploader to the page, and you just go down the line. Whatever fields you want to save from the moment they sign up, you can add in here as well. Just as a rule of thumb, something to keep in mind to make your user's experience go smoothly, try not to make the sign up form too long. Only collect whatever information you need minimum to have them sign in quickly. It's a best practice to make these sign up forms easy. You don't want them to spend too much time, otherwise they could end up abandoning your form. So you really only want to collect what you need to begin with. You can later, in a separate page after they've logged in, update their user record with any additional information. Or at the very least, break up your sign up form into multiple parts and update that user record that way. So your first step could run this first action to sign the user up. This would create the user, save whatever values, and then let's say you have a step 2. I'm just going to have another button here. So you run this sign up action, perhaps you move to a separate page, or you show a different grouping of inputs, and this will be your step 2 submit button. I'm just going to put the number 2 after that so we can keep them apart. And this would trigger its own workflow. And that would make a change to the current user, which you could run from data and then make a change to thing. And you can select current user. And so this would simply update any fields either by overwriting or saving them for the first time in the same way we did with the sign up action. And I do want to point out that you can actually update the current user's record 2 different ways. The first way is what I just showed you. From data, make a change to thing, and thing to change is the current user. Or, I'm going to delete that. You can stay within this account list and navigate to this action, make changes to current user. It's actually the exact same thing. Bubble just gives you a bit of a shortcut here to making a change specifically to the logged in user. So again, you would just select the fields you want to save. And if we're talking about breaking up a sign up form into multiple parts, then here when the submit to button is clicked, you would only concern yourself with the fields that are in that part 2 form. You do not have to set every single field every single time. By not selecting a field, it doesn't mean that it's going to clear it out when you're updating a record. It's just not going to change it. Okay. And also notice that you do have a shortcut to create new fields under the record you're working with. So in this case, if I select create a new field here, it's going to create a new field for my user data type. It's the same as going over to data and then your data type and creating a new field that way. A lot of times when you are building workflows, you might not know or realize you need, or I should say, you might realize that you do need an extra field that you didn't previously create right in the moment. And so this is a nice little shortcut to create a field right from this window instead of having to go all the way back to data and navigating that way. You can also delete your fields too, like you can see the little trash cans here. Okay, so let's go back to our account list. So with signing the user up, you have all of this information. You can save whatever fields you need. The next item in the list is logging the user in. This one's a bit more straightforward. All Bubble needs is that email address and password to log the user in. So these are inputs you would need on your page to have the user fill in. Again, they can stay logged in, which means that after they've logged in once, there's an expiration. I believe it's a couple weeks. Actually, let's check out the reference. Anytime you have a question about a field and what type of value should be saved here, hover over the input for a few moments and you'll see this link come up, see reference. When you click on that, Bubble's reference site will show up in a separate tab and it'll navigate specifically to that field so that you can see the definition of that particular field and understand a little bit more about what Bubble is looking for. So for staying logged in, it looks like this will keep the user logged in after they've closed their browser, so they won't be forced to log in every single time. It doesn't look like there is any indication of how long they'll stay logged in. I do know that Bubble does log you out after a certain amount of time, simply for security purposes, and I think it is about 2 weeks, but that could have changed. They don't have it listed in their reference, so you'll want to check with the forum on the most updated information there for this period of time. Remembering the email is slightly different. This is just so that if they are presented with the login form, the email field will pre-fill with whatever email they might have previously used to log into your app with. This won't keep them log in. It'll just pre-fill their email so that they don't have to type it in again. Okay, so the next action is sign up, log in with a social network. So if you want your users to sign up to your application with Facebook or Google or some other social network, LinkedIn, or anything that allows OAuth authentication, that's the method of authentication that these social network logins use, then you'll want to have that platform installed as a plugin. There are no built-in providers here when you first create a Bubble app. We can see that I have Facebook as an option here because I have installed the Facebook plugin into my application. Now, to understand what your options are for social network providers, the best way to take a look at that list is to go to your plugin section, click Add Plugins, and then filter the plugins by login service. So I'm going to deselect all of these and check only login service. And you can see the full list of options. All of these will allow your users to sign up to your application with these specific services. So that means that they will be redirected to these services login pages first. They'll log in with their credentials on LinkedIn, for example, or Medium, and then be redirected back to your application, and you will have a user record automatically created for that user using the email address that they sign in with on those services. If you've ever signed up to a website with Facebook or Instagram or any type of social network, LinkedIn, anything like that, that's exactly how this works. This is the same sign up method that we're using here. And there are lots of services that you can use. I would say only select the services that are relevant to your app's users. Facebook is a very popular one because a lot of people just have a Facebook account, and so it's really convenient. But just because there's literally dozens of them there doesn't mean you have to offer all of them. Just ones that you think that your particular audience will find convenient. If you want to do that, then you'll want to use this action to sign them up and log them in. Note that with Bubble's normal email and password method of signing up and logging in, those are two separate actions. But with a social network, it's actually the same action. So signing them up for the first time or logging them back in, you'll use the same one, and you will just select that provider. By clicking on the button and triggering this action, that will redirect them to the login page on that site, and then they'll be taken back. If you do install one of these plugins to make this happen, definitely make sure to fill out the plugin settings, because you will need to get extra information from these sites to get the plugin to work properly. So for example, Facebook does require you to provide what's called an app ID and an app secret. And you will get those by registering your application on Facebook's developer site. And this is going to be pretty much the system for all of these OAuth providers. And you'll find specific links to where to get these special keys from the reference link for that plugin. Okay, so the next action is log the user out. This is also very straightforward. There's actually not much to set up here besides setting a condition if you wanted it to only run under a specific condition. It just logs the user out. Okay, the next one is updating the user's credentials. This will let you change the user's email and or password while they are currently logged in. Okay, so this is not meant for resetting a password if they've forgotten their password or locked themselves out somehow. It is also not for changing someone else's email or someone else's password. This is only for the user themselves when they are logged in to change their email and or password. You can do them both in the same action if you check both of these boxes. Do note that to run this action and update either the email and or the password, that the user needs to provide their current password as a way to authorize this change. It's a security measure, and really what I would suggest doing is having an input field for them to enter their current password, which would go here, and then a separate input to enter in their new email address, which would go here if you are wanting to change it. If not, then you can just leave that unchecked. And if they're changing their password, you would want a separate input to enter in their new password. And if you want to also require a confirmation for this new password, then you can check that, and you would need a separate input for that. So for example, if you had the user updating their password, you would need 3 inputs, one for the current, one for the new, and then one for the confirmation, if you are requiring this here. All right, and the same thing for the email. You would need the current password and the new email address there. Bubble will automatically show a success message once the credentials are updated successfully. You can choose to ignore that in case you wanted to design your own type of messaging by showing your own alert message or showing a pop-up or something like that. All right, so that's updating the user's credentials. Then you have the make changes to a current user, which I had previously talked about. This is simply updating that user record. This is not to update an email or password, but it's to update any of your custom fields. So these are fields that I created in the data section. And if the user wants to change their name or a reference to a company record, this is where you would do all of those things. Okay, sending a confirmation email. So this is the same confirmation email that would have been sent if you had used, let's see, under the sign up, this feature here to send the user an email confirmation with that link for them to click on. This is great if you want to resend a confirmation. Perhaps they lost the email or they never got it. Maybe it went to spam, whatever it might be. This will resend it to them. Note that you cannot select which user to send it to. So this is only going to go to the logged in user for getting a new link, a new email with an updated link. And you do have to provide the confirmation page that you want Bubble to send them to after they've clicked the link. All right, the next action is sending a password reset email. This is for recovering a lost password or a forgotten password in case the user is locked out of your application and they can't get in. This is specifically for resetting the password. It is different from updating the user's password here, because in this case, we're assuming that the user doesn't know their current password and they need to reset it. So what I would suggest is under your sign up form, let's just say that this is still our sign up form here. I'm going to remove that button. You give them the opportunity to reset their password. And I do recommend having this here where it can say, forgot password, ? And the user can click on that. And this text, by clicking on that, would trigger this action to send the password reset email. All that's required is the email address to reset. So you can either have this available in a separate form, or if this opens up a pop-up, then that pop-up could contain a separate input for the user to enter in their email address, or it can be pulled from this same email input that's already in your sign-up form. Either way, you need to give them a way to enter in their email address so that Bubble knows which user is about to reset their password. So let's just say I fill this in with the email input that's already there. So this is the subject and body of the email that you can edit. You can see that I can change this if I want. Bubble will automatically insert a link for the user to click and reset their password. This is a unique link that gets generated for you. You do not have a way to edit that. And that link will take you to, or take the user to the reset password page. This is a built-in page with all Bubble apps. You cannot delete it. And the reason this page is so special is because this is the only page in your app that has the specific action reset password. It's the way that Bubble can control this unique background process of updating their password from being kind of like in a locked out state, and also for keeping track of whether the password has been reset already or the link has already been used, so that you can't pass around that email and have multiple people resetting the password all the time. It will only work once. So this page is already in your application. You'll see that it's actually pre-designed for you so that you know how it's going to work. It'll need a password input and a confirmation input to confirm the password, and then your workflow would trigger this special action that you're only going to find on this page, reset password, to have those values inserted. And since we're here, I would really recommend navigating the user to some page in your application, for example, the index, or in our case, maybe the dashboard, so that as soon as they've updated, they're automatically taken away from here and they can start to access the app again. This will log them back in. So instead of resetting the password and just keeping them on the page, they won't really know what to do or where to go. I recommend redirecting for them automatically. All right, let's go back to my dashboard page here. All right, so then the next one is create an account for someone else. So this is really handy if your application is going to allow users to create other users and have those other users being signed up not by themselves. So you have other users create user accounts on their behalf. This action doesn't require any password. It only requires the email address that they want to create the account under. What I would recommend doing for this particular flow is the user would enter in the email address. So I'm just going to grab this email input since we have it on the page. And create an account for someone else with this email address. You could change other fields like their name or their picture, whatever it might be. And what I would recommend doing, because this new user doesn't really have a password yet, is running the action to assign a temporary password to this new user, okay? So this is a specific action that replaces the current password of a user or assigns a new password to a user, in this case, for the first time. And it's a randomly generated password that Bubble will create for you. And all you have to provide here is the user you're wanting to assign a new password for. And remember, this does replace the password. So in our case here, if we're creating an account for someone else, and then I want to assign them a temporary password, I need to say that the user is the result of the previous step. Okay. And then I can send them an email and let them know, hey, you now have an account on this application. Here are your credentials for you to sign in. Here's your temporary password, so that once they are logged in, with the temporary password, they can then change their own password to something that they decide and completely take ownership over it. But at least this way, they are not signing themselves up. It really depends on how you want your user management and registration to go. If you're just doing a classic, everybody signs themselves up, email, password, click button, then that's all you need. But if you're creating a more customized flow where you have users creating accounts for other people, maybe you have teams, things like that, then this action coupled with this assign temporary password action is the way to go there. So what I would do to kind of help the process along more is send the email to that user that was just created. So we would do something like the result of step one's email. This is the new user, and we would say something like your new account, and I would do something like hi, first name. If they have saved their first name as a part of this action, I would do hi, result of step one's first name, do a comma. You can log in with these credentials. And we would tell them exactly how they are supposed to log in. Their email that was used is the result of step one's email address, and their password is the result of step two, because this is what has generated the password. So while we cannot see this saved anywhere in the database, you will be able to insert it and expose it in an email like this. So the password be the result of step two, without anything else. This value here, this expression, is that password. If you wanted to save that temporary password to the user record, you would have to do it in a custom text field. If that's something that you wanted to hold on to, maybe in case you weren't ready to send them an email yet. Just keep in mind that that password will be stored in a regular text field. It won't be encrypted in the same way that the standard password for the user is. Okay, so that's what I would do if you're creating an account for someone else. Generate the password, send them an email, let them know what that password is, so the user can log in with a regular login form by entering their email and this temporary password. And then when they're logged in, if you've designed like an account settings page for logged in users, then they could change their own password by running the update credentials action. Awesome. So let's move on to the next action here, and that is check password for the current user. Okay, so this is if you want to prevent something from happening and have the user type in their password again in order to expose something or in order for anything to happen. So let me show you an example here. Let's say, just really simply, I'm going to remove all of these actions because I don't need them here anymore. let's say that I have an image here, and this is displaying the current user's profile photo. This is a very, very straightforward, simple example, but I just want to show you how the action works. Now, this image to show the current user's profile photo is not going to be visible when the page is loaded. So I'm going to turn this visibility feature off. So now we can see that it is not visible on page load. Okay. Now let's say that I need the user to type in their password in order to access, in order to see their picture. Even if they've already been logged in, even if they have been using the app and for, on other pages, but now they've come to a part of your application that you want to do an extra security check and check for that password. This is exactly what this action is for, check password for current user. So what I would do is something like this. Let me get rid of this workflow here. I'm going to, upon page load, show a pop-up. So let's add a pop-up to the page here. And I'm going to design this pop-up so that, number one, it cannot be closed by hitting escape or clicking anywhere outside of it. So they're kind of locked into this pop-up. I'm also going to blur everything out because I don't want the user to see anything in the background. So we'll just blur that. And the dark color also helps with that too. Inside of this pop-up, I'm going to add an input to just in the center here. Okay. Now this input will have, will be a password type. So enter password. And then I'll have a button in the pop-up so that we can trigger the check password action. So for the user, I can say submit and continue. Okay, so now this workflow from this button, when this button is clicked, we are going to check the user's password. Check password. Now the password to check is going to be the value of this input that I've added in my pop-up. Passwords value. Okay. Now, if the password is correct and it matches the one that has been saved and encrypted for the logged in user, the workflow will continue to run. So in that case, we'll want to hide the pop-up and we'll select hide pop-up and we'll also show the image. Of course, maybe the image was always visible, and by designing the pop-up so that you never see anything, perhaps hiding the pop-up is enough and you don't really need to show or hide the image, but just kind of demonstrating some different things you can do here. Now, if there's an error, if they type in the wrong password or they simply click the button and haven't typed anything at all, Bubble will return an error and say, hey, the password does not match, and it will terminate this workflow and nothing else will happen. So let's preview the page so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. I'm going to remove this extra input that was just added by accident. Okay, so I'm going to preview the page. And let's see, let me run the application as a specific user. So I'm going to go to data, app data, and then all users, I will run as this user. And let's see, our pop-up is not showing. Let's see why. All right, so on page load, we're going to go to element actions and then show the pop-up so that it always shows as soon as the page is loaded. I had forgotten to add that action in. So now I'm going to refresh. Okay, so this is the first thing I see. And if I click anywhere outside, I can't actually access it. Now let's say I try to click the button without actually entering any password in. Okay, so I have an error. Sorry, that's not the right password. If I type in some password and I actually think this is an incorrect password, I should still see that same error. Now I'm going to refresh the page so that I can type in the correct password for the user. When I click submit and continue, I can see that my pop-up was hidden and my image is shown, and I can see my profile picture here. Great, so that's what that type of action can do for you if you need to kind of add an extra layer of protection, just kind of another security check when the user is logged in to see if, just to have them enter in their password one more time before you reveal something else or before you take them to another page or whatever it might be. Okay, so let's continue with our different account actions. The next one on the list here is to assign the temporary password to a user. So we just saw how that was working when we created an account for somebody else. The next one is to change the email for another user. So when you are logged in and you want to change your own email, you can run the update the user's credentials action. This will only apply to the current logged in user. However, if you want to change the email address for somebody else, some other user, then you will need to specify which user record. So for example, I could do a search for users and we'll just pick some random user here. So I will modify this search so that it just selects a random user from this list. So now it'll apply some user for it to look for, and then I can indicate what I want the new email address to be. This is so that your users can change the email address of other users. Technically, and this is kind of a little workaround hack type of pro tip, you can have the current user run this action for themselves as well. I can insert current user here as the user to change or to update, and the new email address is whatever you want them to save. There's an input on the page. They should type in their new email address. The reason you would want to use this, and the reason I'm kind of calling it a little trick, is because with the normal update user's credential, this action requires the old password to be entered as well. Otherwise, Bubble won't change the email. Now, of course, this is the more secure method of updating the email address. But in the event that you do not want to have that as a part of the process, you just want them to enter in their email address, not their current password, then you can run this action so the user can update their own email address and only add that in. They don't have to enter in their password. So something to consider, very useful also for just having users update other user account emails. The next action on the list is to log out of all user sessions. So let's say that I'm going to select this here. Let's say that your users are logging into your application on their phones and on their computers, maybe their tablets, and they're in on multiple devices. This action lets them log out of everywhere except for the place that they're currently on. So if I'm on my phone and I click this button, Bubble will log me out of my account that is currently logged in on my desktop or my tablet, but not on my phone because that's what I'm currently on. If you wanted to log out of all sessions, then you would want to run this action in addition to the normal log the user out. This will log them out of the current device that they are currently on. Okay, so that's handy if you expect your users to be logging in on multiple places and you want to really make sure that they're only doing one thing at a time. All right, and then we have a couple cookies options related to your users. So the first thing you need to know about those actions is under your settings, and then under the general, I believe it is under general. Yes, here, your general settings. There's an option here under privacy and security to not set cookies on new visitors by default. So if you left this unchecked, Bubble will collect cookies on the user to remember specific browser information. This is what allows things like the email to pre-fill on your login form because Bubble remembers who they are. It also might collect some location data. If you do not want cookies to be collected, then you will want to check this box. If you are in the EU and you need to comply with GDPR rules, then you certainly want to make use of this setting here. Definitely keep this checked. And the actions that are here in the workflows are so that you can have the users explicitly consent to accepting cookies. So you would want to have a form, for example, on your page, if it was a sign-up form or something else that includes a checkbox. Okay, something like this. I'm going to add the checkbox to the page, and it would say something like accept cookies. All right. So only when this is checked will you be able to run that action. And an example of, let's see if we can do an inputs value is changed as the event, and the input that gets changed is the checkbox. Okay. So when this is changed, and only when this checkbox is checked, then we can run this account action of opting into cookies. So this is having the user specifically say, yes, I am okay with cookies being accepted. These options will only be available in your account list here if your settings in your general settings is checked so that Bubble doesn't automatically collect them. If you have this unchecked, Bubble will do it automatically, and it's going to assume that everyone is accepting, and it'll do it for you. When you do that, you can see that those actions go away. You don't have those there because it doesn't matter. Bubble's going to do it for you no matter what. Of course, now I've kind of found a loophole here. I added the action before checking that or unchecking that box, and it's kind of staying in place here. So I do recommend that you keep your users very well aware of whether you are collecting cookies or not. And these actions will allow you to have them accept or opt out of cookies by running either one of these. So if this checkbox is checked, then you can opt into cookies. And what I would do is copy this event and then paste it and change the conditions so that when this value is changed and it's not checked, then we are going to run the other action, which is to opt out from cookies. So I would also recommend that by default, this remain unchecked so that checking it triggers that opt-in. And if they were to change their mind and they end up unchecking it, then it would trigger this event here to opt them out. And it would not keep them opted in. It would opt them back out. So that's how I would set that up. And that's what that is there for. All right, so in the next lesson, we will go over the navigation actions here in your workflow section.